You're listening to Gwatney Unplugged on Newsradio 102.9 KARN with Scott Romine. Brought to you by Gwatney Automotive Group.
Hey, Scott Romine. Welcome back to Gwatney Unplugged. We're talking with bodybuilder Shawn Maves. He writes for bodybuilding.com, and he's probably our longest distance guest so far. He's on the line from Canada. I want to ask you, how do these fitness models and TV stars and bodybuilders, how do they guarantee they're going to peak on the day they're going to do a show or the day they're going to do this photo shoot for this big magazine?
Yeah, that's a good question. Guys, here's the thing: the guys will not maintain that image that you see in the magazines year round. They'll go through a cutting phase. They'll bulk up for a number of months, and unfortunately, they'll use different drugs to do that. And hard work. I want to stress one thing: this is a hard sport. It's not just, you don't instantly gain success just because you take steroids. It's like baking a cake. You need to have the right temperature. You need to have a hot oven. You need to train extremely hard. I've been around some guys, and I know myself for a number of years. I was training extremely hard. So, to answer the question, these guys will go on an 8 to 10 week cutting cycle, and they'll start reducing their carbs. They'll take the fat down. They'll watch everything they eat. And then they'll peak. The last 2 or 3 days for a contest or a photo shoot, what you'll do is you'll start to take hot foods that are low in sodium, high in potassium. Unfortunately, some of the bodybuilders also take diuretics, which is dangerous, and they'll be taking cutting drugs like Winstrol V and stuff like that. And you get that final look, and they'll only maintain that look for a few days, and they'll go back to, within a few weeks, you almost don't recognize them.
That is crazy. It goes down to just a handful of days that you've done all these weeks prep for.
Yeah, I recently did a photo shoot for Faith and Fitness magazine I was the cover modeler issue for back in October 2017, and my editor from Virginia, Brad Bloom, asked me to get a photographer and do a photo shoot up here, and I actually peaked for that picture. And a few guys asked me, were you on anything? I've been natural since 1990, but as a competitive bodybuilder, I know how to peak for a photo shoot. And I don't do many photo shoots anymore because I'm really more into writing, and I'm trying to expand in the media a little more. But for that photo shoot, I trained like I was training for a contest, and I peaked for that shot. If you look up Faith and Fitness magazine, you'll see my cover on the 2017 October issue, and you can tell that, compare that to some of my other pictures, that I peaked for that photo shoot.
That's fantastic. Hey, let me ask you, we talk about steroids and bodybuilding. How is it affecting the NBA and the NFL? And do these guys get some benefit or use these things? Or, I mean, I wouldn't think it would help you dunk, but I'm sure probably in some areas it's useful or it's being used.
Yeah, there's no question that there's a drug problem in professional sports. Most people don't want to talk about it. NBA coach George Karl, who coached 2,000 games, recently came out with a book, and he claims the NBA has a serious drug problem. He's not talking about recreational drugs. Brady Quinn, who was on a CBS podcast, claims that 40 to 50% of NFL players are taking human growth hormone. So we know that there's problems in cycling, like Lance Armstrong, and on and on. So one of my Facebook friends tells me that he knows a number of pro hockey players who are taking growth hormone for recuperation. Some of this stuff you can get prescribed from a doctor if you have a low testosterone reading. So, but some of these guys are getting the stuff off the black market. I don't know. I can't tell you who's doing what in pro sports. I know in bodybuilding, I know a lot of guys are getting this stuff off the black market, and it's rampant in all sports. There's no question. It's sad. It's a sad reality.
Well, I've wondered, how are people getting their hands on all this stuff? Do they actually order this stuff on the internet and wait for steroids to show up in the mail? I mean, how is that? And I know that they call it a kit, correct?
You're actually talking to the wrong guy. I'll try to answer, though. 1990, I quit everything. I threw my steroids in the garbage spot. But I can tell you this. I get Facebook friend requests, at least a couple every month, from guys trying to sell me steroids. They'll have a nice picture of a physique contest they went into, and then when I look over the profile, it's post after post after all the different drugs you're selling. So guys are selling this stuff on the internet, and I just click delete request. Sorry, I'm not interested. I'm clean. I'm living a healthy lifestyle. I just had blood work done a few months ago, and I came back squeaky clean, except for one reading was a little high, probably because I'm still on a high-protein diet. We'll talk about that later. There's a danger of even taking too much protein. But I have a great bill of health, and I'm happy to be natural for all these years. And I don't really know how guys are getting stuff anymore.
So you dabbled in this for 2 or 3 years back in the late 80s, early 90s. Tell us about what you used, what it did for you, and why you just quit.
Yeah, I was using, there's 4, I talk about this on Facebook. There's 4 stages of bodybuilding. I was a stage 2 user. In other words, I cycled. I would try one steroid out and take a break for 2 months, and I'd try another one out. And some of the guys today are stacking different drugs, and they're taking a whole combination of GH. I didn't get into all that stuff. I tried a few steroids out off and on for 2.5 years. Guys are always interested. What could I do naturally? 3 years natural. I could bench press 300 pounds. That was all my own. Just drinking my protein powder, having my 6 meals a day, 17-inch arms natural. Then, when I went over the dark side, I took steroids off and on for 2.5 years. My arms went up to 19 inches. I could bench 370. I never tried to do over 370. I probably could have done 400. So those are the kind of numbers you can do. That's the kind of increase you can look at with a lot of hard work. But here's the thing. Here's the reason. The real reason I quit, though. I remember going to the hospital, and I was doing steroids. I took a bad shot or something. And I remember coming back, looking in the mirror, and I just realized that I was becoming somebody who I didn't want to be. I was a born-again Christian. I was professing to be a Christian, but not following the teachings of Christ. I was poisoning my body with the drugs, and I was living this life of anger, obsession. I was lying to newspapers. There's 3 newspapers who were interested in my story. I had to lie to them, lying to friends and family. I just got tired of the lies. Sometimes, Scott, progress in life is making a U-turn. You can't change the beginning, but you can begin to change the ending, and that's what it was.
I want to ask you about these guys today. I always hear they're using insulin. Is that the same thing diabetics are taking, and what would that do to build muscle?
Yeah, I don't, insulin, I'm not a real expert at that. I know my wife is actually diabetic. She takes it. When you take insulin, it lowers your blood sugar. I don't know the technicalities, but it helps to stimulate growth. But it also actually a lot of the guys that have wider, thicker-looking waists. That's because of a combination of using growth hormone, which grows everything in your body. I talked about that earlier. That it accelerates growth of healthy and cancerous cells. It also accelerates your growth of your organs, your intestines, and your abdominal wall, and all that stuff. So you're getting the side effects. Guys are bigger. You look at some of the guys today. You look at Phil Heath and some of the mass monsters, Ronnie Coleman and Dorian Yates, Phil Heath. All those guys, they have thicker muscles, but you'll notice also they have slightly thicker waist also than the classic era guys.
Yeah, I don't care for the look, but the growth hormone has got to be growing their intestines and spleen and everything else. So I think that would be what's affecting these waistlines.
Exactly. That's what's happening.
It's not a good look to me. I love the classic Arnold era of bodybuilding and the 80s. After that, it just becomes something that seems completely unobtainable. Naturally.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I agree.
I come back, I'm going to ask you, what is synthol? So think on that. We've got to take a quick break. Scott Romine here for Gwatney Unplugged. We're talking with Shawn Maves. He's a bodybuilder in Canada. Mr. Ontario. We'll be right back.
You're listening to Gwatney Unplugged on Newsradio 102.9 KARN with Scott Romine. Brought to you by Gwatney Automotive Group.